Crystal Media Podcast Network.
This is Table for Two.
So this is Table for Two, our podcast specifically focusing on leadership, but the human and people element of it. And today we are delighted to have Haja Nurul Jaafar, the CEO of Progresif. Haja Nurul, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Jenny. Good morning. And thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and to be with you again.
I did my best to come in some nice brand colors. I couldn't quite pull off the heavy magenta. But thank you for having us. Haja Nurul,
Thank you.
I want to kick off, get right in there. I have been doing some rummaging around on the internet.
Oh,
And I found your LinkedIn bio, and it reads this, just to kind of set the context around Haja Nurul's personality. Quote, be the change we want to create. A dreamer, a challenger, a traveler, and someone driven by passion to do more, be more, and experience more. Talk a little bit about this very powerful quote and how it drives you every day.
so be the change we want to create. That's one principle that I live by because who would be the best of changer, but if not ourselves, right? Change starts with us. And that's what I keep telling my friends, the people around me, my colleagues, my staff, like when they ask me, what drives me to do what I do today? Not just the passion, but it's also leaving that impact. What do we want to achieve out of life? You know, personal or professional? It's just about making that impact. I guess growing up, it's always taught me about responsibility, being a responsible individual, being accountable to what I do and who I serve. And that's the key word, like who I serve. We are serving others around us. And I think that's a key thing about leadership as well. You are in the service of others. So when you are serving others, you have to also remember, how are you helping them? How are you making that change? And how are you creating that lasting impact? And it starts with us. We have to lead by example, right?
So that's really interesting. There are different styles of leadership, and one of them is servant leadership. Is that how you currently run your team? You are there to serve them. Let's not talk about your customers, but your current team.
I like empowering people. I like surrounding myself in a room with smart people. And that's where I get the energy. I feel that, you know, when in a leadership role, it's not just about you. It's not about titles. It's not about what your status brings you. When I work with my team, I want that feeling of trust. That's very important. In a good situation or in a worst of situation, trust is what holds people together. You know, I trust you to do what's right. I trust you to do the good things for the company and for yourself. And that, to me, if someone trusts me and trusts me with something, that means a big deal for me. How I feel when others treat me is what I would like others to feel, and that's how I treat them.
Is that similar to people will behave in a way that you expect them to behave? And that goes for any relationship at all.
Exactly.
If you expect the best, you will get the best.
You will get the best. So treat others how you want to be treated, right? So I'd like to be treated with respect. I love, you know, being given the empowerment and the trust. So that's the same ethos for me. Yeah. That's the same principle. That's how I work by, I live by.
You haven't always been a CEO. You know, your days started back in the early 2000s. You were a legal officer.
Yes.
So let's be clear. Your climb to the top has been incremental and steady and gradual. Some people go straight in at the top.
Yeah.
You definitely have come through the ranks.
Almost 20 years of experience.
From hands-on to now being in a CEO position.
Yeah.
Do you like being a CEO?
I guess one of the things that, looking back throughout my career in it, like you said, I've done a lot of things. I've gone through quite a bit of a career progression. And alhamdulillah, you know, I was surrounded by a very supportive environment and an enabling environment. I had bosses that supported me, that encouraged me to grow just beyond, you know, they saw my capabilities.
Did you see your capabilities?
Yeah, I didn't.
That's the thing, isn't it?
I didn't. But what I do realize from the start is I'm not one to say no to just giving something a try. I'd be afraid of it, yes. And I know I'm not going to lie to you, being told like, you know, this role, CEO, I was really scared.
What were you scared about?
A lot of things. You know, one, first thing, I felt that I was young. I think I was one of the youngest. I was 37 when I became CEO. But that time I had just under maybe 15 years of experience working in the telco industry. And my background is not telco, by the way. I mean, it's not engineering, not in the technical fields, not that what you'd expect out of a telco background CEO, right? So I learned the ropes, obviously. I got to understand the business better. But yeah, you're right. My role, I started out as a junior legal officer. Junior meaning I reported to someone. So I was like really fresh, really young. That alone was also challenging because I was entering the corporate world. I didn't know what to expect. And that time it was B-Mobile. It was a very new business. It was a challenger brand. I liked it about that. Yeah, I liked it about that. Like, okay, something new, something different. Oh, this is interesting. And I had a government offer, by the way, at that time, a government job offer. So I was in between this. Do I pick this government job offer? Very stable, very safe. Mm-hmm. And, friends and family were saying, yeah, pick that one. And then I turned to my siblings and none of them worked in the government at that time. And I asked them, like, what do you think? And they said, man, follow your heart. What is wrong in giving it a try? And you're still young. There could be still opportunities for you. So give it a shot. And I did. I was afraid, but I didn't let that fear stop me. So I took the job, took the role, learned new things, got curious, got even more curious. And I asked, could I do this? Could I try doing this? Legal expanded to regulatory. And then I did a bit of PR and comms. And then I was interested and was intrigued about marketing. So I learned a bit about how we could retain customers. So I created a loyalty program for B-Mobile that time. It was called the B-Mobile Club, Detroit B Club. So it was interesting. I had fun. I found it exhilarating. I wanted to do more. And that was where that tagline or that narrative about
driven by passion
to do more, be more. And I want to achieve more, not just for myself, but for the people around me. I want to make people proud. I want to make my family proud. I want to make that impact.
So how do you know when you have done all those things? What kind of things do you need to hear your family say for you to have that validation? Your family, your leadership team, your staff, what are the words that you would love to hear today to say, you know what, I've got this, I'm on the right track? What's important for you?
It's seeing that ripple effect. What has my actions led to? And the saying, your action speaks louder than words, yes. Right? And then you show it by actions. But to me, sometimes actions is a one-time thing and people forget about it. And what's the lasting impact is how people feel about it.
Okay.
Right? After you've done something. Mm-hmm. And that is what I take pride in. That is what gives me joy, that, I've made that impact. Never mind that, they forgot me or forgot what I did. But if I'm able to leave that impression on someone and it's made them feel good about themselves, feel inspired to do more, be better because of what I did, then I'm happy.
So there's that phrase that it's all about how somebody makes you feel rather than what they do or don't do. It's about that connection.
It's about a connection. It's about that bond. And my leadership style is like that.
Which brings me back to something this morning. We were sent an SMS from your team about questions to not ask you today. And one which was struck off was a question specifically about female leadership. So I'm not going to ask you that question.
Sure.
But I want to ask you, why, Haja Nurul, would you like to not focus on that specific question around female leadership? Because it's obviously going to be a very on-the-nose angle. You're a female CEO. People love to fly that girl boss vibe conversation. So why do we not
want to
that question?
I get asked this question quite a lot, and it's okay. It's not a sensitive question, but it's just not something that I feel that people should define leadership as. Right?
I love that.
Yeah, it's not a gender thing. It's not a woman and man thing, and so I want to avoid that question. Not because it's a wrong question, but it's because I want to. People should be given the freedom to define what leadership is about. And to me, it's not gender related. it should be based on merits and its
I'm
effectiveness.
so glad you said that. Because it felt a little bit obvious and on the nose to me. And I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that that's always your angle. You coming in as a female boss. Do you know what?
Yeah.
Female, male, or otherwise,
It's the
why do
same.
we always have to have
Yeah,
a
correct.
special conversation
Correct.
about
Correct.
being
That's
women
right.
in leadership roles?
And the challenges you face, men or women, I think it's going to be the same.
Right.
Right. Okay, maybe sometimes they feel there is that stereotype of you're in a male-dominated world, in a telco business, around you're male. Actually, no. My technical team, they're female too. Yeah. And more I see are getting, more female are getting into this role. And that's something I obviously encourage. And I love seeing, and I love to see more of. So, yeah, so it's not gender. It's not discriminating who is better. To me, you should just be out there, embrace the opportunities that you have, make the most of it, and show what you got.
And I really believe, even statistically in Brunei, we do have a very high percentage of females in leadership roles,
Yeah.
private sector and public sector.
Exactly.
So leadership role, I want to ask you something. What is your position on power distancing? Because a lot of the time, a lot of new leaders may be told, don't be friends with everybody. Keep your distance. Show them who's the boss. This to me can feel a little bit outdated. It sounds to me as though you love to have some kind of personal connection with your team, whoever they may be.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about your relationship with power distancing yourself. Is there such a thing? And how you manage that with your team?
Yeah. And there's another thing, hierarchy. There's the bit where they say, oh, you're up there. Don't deal with the, your -3 or -2. Just deal with your direct reports.
And your response to that is?
No, it doesn't work for me. I like inclusivity. I like hearing everyone's views, no matter who you are, whether you are just an intern or whether you're someone in my senior management team. Everyone's view counts. And I guess the more views you have, you're better informed at making decisions. You have a wider perspective of things. And I think as a leader, we need to be mindful of that. One person's view is not always the right view. And being the boss doesn't mean I'm always right either. There are days that I have to admit that, that does give me a better overview of, where the certain blind spots are. And I appreciate feedback. Right. But it obviously has to be constructive, respectful of people. And that's something I always remind myself. I'm not perfect, Jenny. There are days that I feel like I just want to make this decision. This is the way. But then I have to remind myself to take a step back and just listen more, and help that listening shaped me to become a better person at making the right decision at that time.
Okay, I want to pick up on something. A bad day.
You're
You're not perfect, you said. You are human. And a lot of the time, people in these high leadership positions are expected to be less than human, almost robotic. Get it right
like
every
no
time.
feelings
No
at all.
feelings. Tell me what will constitute a bad day for you? And how do you get yourself out of that?
Oh, I've had a lot of those lately.
Go back to something recently then, without having to tell us the details, but how did you manage it?
With difficulty.
And it's a constant challenge?
Sometimes these things, you're as leader, you're expected to be tough.
What does
And
tough mean? Means don't have any feelings.
I guess. And sometimes people feel that. You can't show too much of your emotions, I guess. And maybe that's that side of me that I won't say it gets in the way, but there are days that my emotions can get the better of me. But that day, I know I had one bad day recently, and I just decided, okay, I'm not gonna continue this day. It stops, and I need time to reset, recharge. And so that means I took half day off. I gave myself that because I wouldn't be a good person to continue that day. I wouldn't be good to the people around me. I wouldn't be good to myself. And I just needed that reset. And was it an immediate reset? No. It needed me to sort of just reflect on the day, what had happened, Was there something that I could have done to improve it? Was there something that I could have said that could have made things better? So no, just reflection, and it helps talking to people, my safe circle, no judgment, and sometimes just airing it out. It helps.
So on this day, you decided, let's say it's 12 o'clock, I'm going to end this bad day. I've got to take some time out. Obviously, you have to tell your leadership team that you're stepping out for a while.
Yeah.
That shows a moment of vulnerability. How do you think that was perceived by the team?
I think they understand me enough that, no amount of counseling or talk would do good at that time. They knew that, I just needed to be away. But it helped that, they checked in on me, asking if I'm okay, things are good, and that if I needed to talk about how things were, or how things went, they're ready, and I guess that understanding, that bond, it's what keeps me going.
So recently we celebrated World Mental Health Day, and to me your action demonstrates an exceedingly high emotional intelligence of your resilience that day. To be able to say, I'm not in a good place, I'm taking a break, is a show of mental strength. How important is a mental health conversation for you and your whole staff?
Every 10th of October, yeah. It's not just a day for one day. It's something that I tell myself and my team. It's not something that you remind yourself to take care of yourself just on this day. It's an ongoing thing. It's a process as well. And it's okay not to have the answers to everything. What if you're going through a problem, you're going through a crisis, dilemma. Learn to lean for support, ask for help. And, no matter what role you're in, you're still human. I ask for help. I reach out to my friends, to my family, to my colleagues. When I'm not sure, there are days that my confidence level are low as well. And I just recharge by either getting inspired by those around me or just simply listening to things that, reaffirm me, like positive affirmations, listening to podcasts, reading short motivational words, quotes, something just to lift me up.
Well, tell me about some of the fun things you do in your day. A normal day, it could be a Tuesday. What are some of these little plugins you have to keep you feeling motivated, positive, a little bit more confident? What are some of these habits you have?
I think people that know me knows that I don't sit still.
Are you fidgety?
No, I'm just active. I'm always doing something. I'm always on to something.
Okay, well, hold on. On Sundays,
Yeah.
a day off. Tell me
Sunday.
about what a day off looks like for you.
Errands, yeah. Time with the family.
What kind of errands? Are you shopping?
The usual, yeah. Weekend grocery shopping, doing whatever is in the to-do list, like pick up laundry, send things. But most importantly, that's the time I spend with my son. And I asked him, what would you like to do today? Because he has his activities too. That young boy is also full of energy and he has his own social life.
Right?
Yes, he does. So Saturdays, Sundays, afternoons are dedicated to his football sessions. So I know that my mornings to early afternoons is when I can spend as much quality time with him. So I asked him what he wants to do, where he plans to go, what he wants to eat, and just spending that time together, listening to how his week went. Not that I don't, or on weekdays, but sometimes you're just tired from just a long day at work. And he's also tired from school. He gets off school like almost 6 p.m. And by the time he's home, he also just wants to unwind.
Yes.
And sometimes we could just be beside each other and just relaxing, enjoying just each other's comfort,
Doing
company, doing nothing. Yes. Sometimes I do take pleasure in doing nothing as well, but like I said, I'm just naturally active. It's also a time that I catch up with friends if I can, because I like social connection.
You have a very high social battery.
They do ask me, like, where do I get my social battery from? I don't know.
So being with good company will energize you.
Yes.
So you're an extrovert.
I can be an introvert too, but yes, I'm more of an extrovert.
So you love Sundays, which are packed out with a girls' breakfast, go off to a wedding, come to Peak for a football match. You like those kind of days?
I do. I enjoy those kind of days, but I also enjoy my quiet time. So I know when I need to really rest. There are days that, okay, my son may not want to do anything. He just wants to stay home. And I just make that time to do catch up on my sleep.
So you literally can sleep on Sunday if you want to.
If I want to, yes, I can. But honestly, I don't have a lot of that sleep in Sundays.
Would you like to have more of them?
Yeah, I mean, it it can't hurt, right? I mean, that's a good way to also unwind and obviously recharge. But yeah, I think seeing people, getting updates from my friends, doing things with my son, is more of my thing. That's how I recharge too.
So the whole family dynamic is obviously a big part of your life. You come from a very illustrious, successful family. You know, your brothers and sisters are all in great leadership positions. What are your dinner table conversations like?
Interesting. That's very interesting. And we share perspectives on life, how work challenges are, and how we overcome them. And I do draw a lot of my inspiration from my family.
You're the youngest.
Yeah, I am the youngest. Yeah, I'm.
Are you treated
youngest out of 4? Always, they're always treating me as the baby, and even now I'm like, hello, I'm not a baby anymore. I know how to do things my way.
But you lean on your family as much as you lean on people in the office and your personal friends.
Yes, I do, and they're my pillar of strength. Yeah. I mean, if I'm having a bad day or there's a bad situation, I'd always go to my sisters first. I'd ask for their views. I'd ask them how would they approach it. You know, I just like understanding different ways of doing things and finding what could work best in that given situation. It's not a one size fits all. So I've learned to be adaptable, and growing up, I think that's one of the things that I've observed a lot from the people around me. And being adaptable is good. You know, you can't be too rigid because just because you want things done a certain way, but you have to also be considerate of those around you, understand what's the limitations, what's the challenges, and then turn that into something positive. So yeah, so adaptability is something that I've learned quite a great deal growing up, and it's helped me. It's equipped me for my leadership role today.
So obviously leadership role, mother role, sister, younger sister role, it's a very dynamic set of relationships you have. You mentioned earlier on how you do depend on a lot of motivational quotes and podcasts. Share with us some of these content pieces. Where are you getting them from? Who inspires you? Who do you read on a regular basis?
I don't read any particular genre on. It's a variety of things, and I have to admit I don't have a lot of free time to read. So I like those short summary ones.
Yes.
And downloading. I have Headway. Is the app? Yeah. So every morning it gives me a 15-minute summary of what's good to read today. This week, it'll tell me, okay, let's focus on productivity this week. These are the highlights. I may not read all or hear all of them, but I quickly browse through, and any good ones I share with my team.
Can you give me an example of a good one you shared with your team recently?
It was on humility and how that is important in teamwork. It just, to me, when you're working with all kinds of dynamics, right? All kinds of personalities, and everyone always just wants to have a say, have a view, which is okay. Yeah, it's good to share views, but you can't be so focused on your own view all the time. You have to be willing to also listen to others, let your guard down, and also admit that certain things you didn't know or never realized. And that, hey, it opens up your own view to a more different perspectives. And I repeat this perspective because I don't think people appreciate it as much. Yeah, I don't think people value that as much. And it's perspectives that's what causes conflicts sometimes, because you're too narrowed in your view, and you're not seeing the bigger picture, or you're not seeing how someone else is looking at the situation. So just understanding that and having that sense of humility as well, to open up, to listen, to admit when you're wrong, and to admit, oh, you didn't know that. it creates a positive environment. And to me, that's very important when you're working with a group of people.
I feel humility comes from having an acute sense of self-awareness.
Yeah.
And through self-awareness, the more confident you are, the more able you are to demonstrate vulnerability. How do you feel about that? It goes back to the start of the conversation.
I think yes and no. Yes and no. Sometimes people don't know what it is as well, or how to demonstrate it, despite maybe them being confident. So the self-awareness is, as you said, very important. It's not just important in a position where you're leading others, but it's also important when you are trying to, improve yourself, right? Like, how do I become a better version of myself? And whether that's from feedback or that's from your own self-reflection after a long and tiring week or a long argument you've had, you need to ask yourself, like, okay, was that a version of me that I'm proud of? Can there be a better version of me? How do I be that better person? And to me, we shouldn't stop trying to improve ourselves. We're not perfect, as you said. You're not about being perfect, right? It's
Progressive.
Improving day to day.
Progressive.
Progressive.
I see what you did there. I want to just round off now with a couple of questions on how you feel people perceive you. I was looking forward to having a conversation with you today because I know that you are somebody who's very real. You don't come in here with all of these cliche lines. Your eyes watered up quite a bit during this conversation, which I actually didn't expect. So you've really put yourself out there today and we appreciate it. Tell me, if we were to ask your son, he's what, 11?
Yeah, turning 11.
If we were to say, describe Mummy to us, what do you think he would say to us?
First thing he'd probably say is busy. Mommy's always busy. But I think he'd say Mommy is kind.
That's important to you?
Actually, I thought kindness is actually a weakness at one point. Yeah. A while ago, when in this leadership role, I had a lot of self-doubts. And like I said, I didn't really want this role. But then I remembered, if I'm in this role, what positive change can I make? What impact can I give? There was a conversation that someone told me about something, and someone was basically assessing me as like, can she do it? Is she strong enough? Is she capable enough? And I have to admit, and I had those questions myself. So all those self-doubts, it sprung on me. It weighed me down for a bit. And then someone highlighted that she's too kind, she's too nice. Is that something that is a quality? Can she really lead a very challenging, very tough, very aggressive, competitive landscape? And if you recall the transformation, it was a big change for all of us. And it needed some hard decisions to be made as well, especially about people. I know I'm always considerate, and I would think of how others would feel or react given a situation first before, just making that decision. I think of all of these things. I think it through. I did ask as well, is this a quality that I can use as part of my leadership? Is this something that will be helpful? Showing empathy, showing kindness. And for a while, I did think that was not a quality, not a strength. But when you asked me, being kind is something that I value, and it's something that I want my son to see as something as important. The human connection. Yeah, when you're working, you don't expect people to not have feelings and emotions. They're not robots. So that human connection, that bond, the kindness, and even empathy is something I want my son to also inculcate as part of a value growing up, and who he wants to be in the future, whether a footballer or a chef, because he wants to be so many things. I said, always have these values. It's important. Because no matter who you are, one day, you could be a CEO one day, you could be a nobody so one day. But people will remember you for who you are. Yeah, not for the CEO role that I was for how many years. So, yes, I want to be remembered as that. And yes, I do now, more strongly than ever before, believe that it is a quality, it is a strength. And you don't always have to choose to be firm and showing empathy. You can be both. And yeah, I draw that inspiration from one of the public figures, actually. And it's Jacinda Ardern, actually. If you're not familiar, or if no one's familiar, but I'm sure everyone knows, she won global admiration for her role during a crisis in New Zealand. She was the former Prime Minister of New Zealand, and how she handled crisis. And, being a woman leader, Prime Minister as well, she showed empathy. It was a strength that I saw that, I had, but I didn't know that was it. That was the strength. So, to me, I like observing people around me, and I like that validation. I knew I had it, but sometimes you just need that validation, reaffirmation that what you're doing is right, and you don't have to second guess yourself all the time. It's okay to have self-doubts. I do that. I have that, but quickly bounce back. Just remember what it is that you want to do. What is your purpose in life? And just ensure that, you are on that path. You're on the right track to achieve that purpose.
I want to close out with a couple of my own personal observations. Number one, I have known you for a very long time. And I think what's been remarkable about you is that whether you were a legal officer to a CEO, you've never treated me any different. You didn't change in terms of how you relate to people, which leads me to my final point that yes, you are a CEO, but Haja Nurul, you've managed to run your leadership role in a position where being a CEO has not defined you, or your position in the community. It's really been about your connections. You remember people's birthdays. If you go on your IG, you're always celebrating a wedding, you're celebrating your son's success. You've always been about celebrating others. And I think you will forever be remembered for that. And now it's my turn to tear up.
Thank you, Jenny.
Haja Nurul, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being so candid.
Thank you so much as well. It's been great, sharing that part of me. Yeah. And I hope, it's helpful and useful, and I hope that also inspires others in one way or another.
I've come away inspired, but I need a tissue right now. That brings to a close our table for two. Haja Nurul Jaafar from Progresif. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jenny. It's a pleasure.
The Crystal Media Podcast Network.